Hello, welcome to this Solid Edge tutorial video. So for this we're going to be using Solid Edge 2023. So if you're on an earlier version, stuff might not work quite the same. If you're on a later version, it should be okay. So this is our Learn page. So we're going to start from here for this tutorial. So we've got options for new. This will allow us to go and choose the different templates. We can set our templates in the settings section. Here we've got print. We've got tools, we've got different kind of tools, information and other kind of options on here. But what we're going to do, we're going to start from the Discover page and we're going to choose New Part for this first example. So once we start our new part, I'm just going to tidy my screen up a little bit. We can have our panes on the center of the screen. We can see on our list on here, we've got our base system, we've got our material and we've got reference planes as well. So if I expand that, I can hover over and we can see our base reference planes. These are our sketch planes, a piece of paper that we're going to go and draw on. Notice here I've set my default to synchronous mode, so I'm going to work with the simple features in synchronous, and then we're going to switch over to ordered later. We can do that with a right click just on the background in nothing, and we can go transition to ordered. That is our history based modeling method. Solid Edge allows us to work in both modes, with our synchronous modeling first and our ordered modeling later on. So for the first item, we're going to go and create a straight feature. So I'm going to choose the box command, and then I'm going to hover over until we're on this plane. So this is the top plane. We can see that because we expanded that earlier, we can see that that's the top plane on there. I like to work with these expanded because you'll see this as we go along. And I'm going to click on that little icon, or you can tap F3. Once we get onto there, if we press Ctrl H, that will take us normal 2. We can then go and draw the appropriate profile. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to create my square. We're doing this 120 by 120. There is a shortcut to allow us to do that straight away, but for this one we're just going to do that, and then we're just going to left click once that's on 0. We're then going to spin the mouse around using the middle mouse button or the scroll wheel on the mouse. Press that and that will allow us to go and view around there. And then while this is moving up, if we press 11 and then enter, that will then go and create our first solid shape on there. I always find it's a good idea at this point to go and save this file in the appropriate location. So if we do Control and S on the keyboard to go and save, this will allow us to go and save that in the appropriate option. So if we go and call this, ignore the rest of this, but if we go and call this vent, let's go 120 square. And then click Save on there. Okay, so what we're doing here, we're creating a vent for a 120mm vent for like a tumble dryer or venting for a shower, a very common item that clips in and doesn't come back out. If you need to go and clean stuff from underneath it, they break. So real nice example. This item, once you've created this, you're able to say this is a 3MF and 3D print this. If you've got that kind of item, or you know somebody's got that, definitely a useful little item to do. So once we've done this, next we're going to choose thin wall. So we're going to choose thin wall. In the little box that pops up, it'll probably be 5 or something along these. So if you press 3 and tab, so use the tab button to give you like a enter on the preview. So rather than confirming it, and then it's asking us to select the open faces. So if we click that face and click that face, we could spin around and click the underside face, but it doesn't matter. And then right click to accept. So that is our enter on there. What's quite nice, if we don't do that view away, if you press Ctrl I, that will take us back to a standard isometric view on there. So next we're going to do a sketch. So Solid Edge in synchronous doesn't have a specific sketch environment. We just choose the appropriate command that we want. We go to the face similar to earlier, and we tap that F3 button or click that lock icon. So this time I'm going to press the F3 button. This time I'm going to leave it in the 3D. I want to go and find this midpoint line on here. So notice that's coming up quite a large dot. I'm going to scroll through to this edge and I'm going to move along that edge until I find that midpoint. Notice we've got that midpoint snap telling us that we've found that midpoint on there. If we're not finding the midpoint, we can go to our sketching tab, and in this little option on here in Telesketch, this will allow us to go and choose what options we're finding. Midpoint is a default setting, so we shouldn't need to do that. Whenever we switch tabs, it's always a good idea to make sure we go back to our home tab. Once we finish that line, if we right click, that then cancels the line on there. We can then go back to select, or if we press the escape key, that is our cancel button in that instance. Be aware that some commands do not escape out on purpose, to make sure we don't accidentally press escape out. So some of them you do have to physically go to select. So what we're looking for here, we're going to go and create a 3mm thick rib. Rather than drawing a rectangle, we've just done a line. If we then choose the little, like the text that says thin wall under the thin wall command, that will give us some additional options. So we're looking for this rib command. Once we've done that, if we click on the line that we've now created, and then click accept, or press enter or right click, whichever our preferred option is, this is going to go and create our rib. If we click 3 and tab again on there, so it might be 5 at the moment, so if we do 3 and tab, but what we need to do at the moment, it's looking for a face to go to, so we need to click on this finite depth button, and that's going to allow us to do a finite depth. This might be 20 as default, so if we go and make sure that is 11, the same as what we did before, that will then give us a valid input. If ever we get that kind of option showing that size is kind of wrong, so if I go back to 50 or something on there, grayed out means it can't do it because the rib doesn't support that. So we can use tab to go between those different values and go and set that. So that grayed out means that there's some kind of value input that's wrong, that's not allowing us to do what we want. Okay, so that's got our model on there. What I'm going to do now, so this model can be changed at the moment. So PMI, that's our dimensions, we call that product manufacturing information. So if we go up to the top and click on all the dimensions, so click on the top one, click shift and click the bottom one, and then click on this little lock icon on here. If you then press escape, you'll notice that all of your dimensions have now gone red, so these are locked dimensions. We could go and double check these dimensions, so these need to be 55.5. You can just left click and then right click to cancel. We just want to go and double check that those are the right kind of size, but we're happy with those as they are. So if we do a quick save on that, and now we're going to go and create the kind of vent angled sections. So for this we're going to go into ordered mode. So if we right click on the background, or you can right click on this little orange bar that says synchronous and go transition to ordered, that's going to go and switch us into ordered, which is sketched edge based. So make sure on the home tab and go up to the extrude command, and this time it's asking for a plane. So for this one I want to go and draw on this plane. Notice we've got a green edge at the bottom, that is the bottom of our sheet, so we need to make sure when we click on there we've got that correct edge. It tells us shortcuts at the top in this little prompt bar on here telling us how to go and do it, but as long as we're following this, we should get this okay. Once we've done that, we're going to get our view. What we need to do is just use the scroll wheel, zoom out, move our mouse towards the left hand side, and then kind of zoom back in on there. So we're zoomed in on the left hand side. What I want to do now, I want to be able to see the underlying geometry. So up here towards the right hand side of the bar, we've got this option to go and show the wireframe or wireframe with hidden edges. So if I click on there, that's going to allow me to go and see this as a wireframe view. Notice our line command has automatically started, so I'm going to go and choose the end point of this line that we can now see. I'm going to come down here, left click, come across, left click, come back up to this line. I don't want to snap to that corner, so I need to make sure that we're just on the line and we've got that little, that's called point on. So it's, the arrow is saying that the point is on the line, but it's not at a midpoint or an end point. And then go back to the original location on there. If we do that right, that should go yellow, showing that we've got a sealed region on there. Next, I'm just going to press escape to come out of the line command. So this line we've got at the top, I'm going to zoom in and select that line. We've got this little context dialog box come up. That allow me to go and choose the equal command, and I'm going to go and click this line down the bottom. So it's going to make those two lines the same length. We could also click on the equal command and then click on each line, but it's quicker if we use that new context toolbar. Next, I'm going to click on Smart Dimension, and that top line was already selected, and I'm going to go 2 mm on there, on the thickness on there. Next, we're already in Smart Dimension, so I'm going to click on this line, and then I'm going to tap the A key. I'm not going to hold it, and that's going to give me an angle. So if we go on there, we can go and set the angle to our required size, which is going to be 35 degrees. We can go back to this point later if we find this angle isn't where we want it to be. So I'm then going to close the sketch. So we've got two little tick buttons, so we can click on either of those ticks. and this is going to allow me to have a look at my extent step. So at the moment this is asking for finite, or we can go through next, which would take it to there, or we can go through all. But the one thing we need to do at the moment, we can see if I just go and change this back up to shaded with visual edges, we can do that as well. You see that's doing a cut. So we click add cut on there, or we can just tap the spacebar. So if we tap the spacebar, that's going to go and turn that to add. We're on through all, we're on one-sided extent, and then just left click to confirm that direction. Once we've done that, we can zoom in on the sketch and double check the sizes. So we get this kind of edit before finish option on here. So if we wanted to go and change that size, so if I want that to be 36, I can go and change that to 36 at this point if we go ahead and do that. And we can go and rename our feature on here as well. So if we find we don't want to call that the original item, so I'm going to call that extruded angle, just because it's a little angle part, and then finish. That makes it easier to go and edit that later. So if we then do a Control I and save, if you get used to doing Control I and save, it means that your thumbnail previews are going to be a decent size. So when you're looking through your parts, it's easier to go and tell what those parts are. Sometimes it's nice to go and turn off the PMI by clicking on the I symbol, because that will kind of just make everything look a little bit neater. You can also click on the base to get rid of that as well if you want. So next, we've done that in ordered, so we can go and pattern that along here. So I'm going to click on extruded angle. I'm then going to come up to my pattern command. So if we wanted to do a rectangular or circular, we could do that. But if you do a rectangular 10 by 1, we might as well just use a long curve. So a long curve is a curve or an edge. So if I select a long curve, we've already selected the item, so our select step has already been done. So notice that has already, and we've gone straight to the curve step on here. So the curve that I want is one of these edges, so I need to make sure it's one of these 4 internal edges, not one of these outside edges. So select the curve, right click to accept, and then it asks for the anchor point, so this is the start. So we're going from this end of this line, we're going to pattern, and we're going to go in that direction. We want to start exactly from that point, so we're going to leave the offset value as 0 and do a green tick on here. So next we're going to go and look at these options. We've got different options, so I can go and fit 10 along or 12 along that edge, and that's going to go and try and fit those along, and we can go and turn the last one off. But I want the last one to kind of do the same as the top one and go back into this corner. So if we go into fill on there, you can see we can go and fill a certain amount with the space in, or we can do fixed on here. So I want to do count 10 on fixed, I want to do spacing at 12. We can see we've got a nice preview, and that's showing that the last one is going to kind of end within there, which is what we want. Once we've done that, we can click next or right click and then click preview and finish to come out of that command. Notice at that finish option we had options to go and change stuff on there. So we can now see we've got the vent. If we click on the top view on there, the idea of putting that on there is that if I click on the home to go back to my ISO, that is going to allow me to print that on a bed, where in reality you would kind of have it in that kind of position. But obviously we're thinking about the manufacturability on there. So that's our main shape. Next we've got a couple of mounting locations that we want on here. So for this we're going to click on extrude. We're going to click on this side face. And the holes that these go into are about 3.5 mil. So I'm going to do a couple of holes, 3.4. And I want to place these in line along here. You'll notice if you're snapping to geometry and it keeps snapping there, make sure when you select, you make sure there aren't any little icons being picked up by your mouse, otherwise you're creating a relationship to the underlying geometry. If you don't want to create relationships, you can press and hold the Alt key, and that will allow you to go and place it without it creating any relationships. It will highlight the lines, but it won't create the relationships. But in this instance, I want to create the relationship to the other hole. I want to create the dotted line saying that they're horizontally aligned, and then press the escape to come back out of the placement step. So next I want to draw a line between the two of these. So if we hover over the edge and then go to the center and then click on the edge and go to the center of there and create that line, and then press the escape key again to cancel that command. Next, if we click on that line, we want to turn this into construction. We don't have to do this, but we've got this little dialog box that will come up and say turn to construction. I'm not going to bother, because any lines that you do, actually let's do that, sorry. So let's go make sure that we turn that into construction on there, otherwise that line is going to cause issues on there. Next, I'm going to hover over that line. I'm going to find the midpoint, so I'm going to hover over that line until it comes up with that little midpoint option, and then click on the midpoint, and then this little dialog box that pops up, I'm going to choose this little command called horizontal vertical, and I'm going to link that midpoint to there. So that is going to keep those two holes centralized over the center of the part. We're then going to choose smart dimension from the top of the screen. I'm going to dimension that line up 40 mm. Last dimension, we haven't got a vertical height at the moment. So on this, I'm going to click on one of the circles on the little dialog box that keeps coming up over there. I'm going to click this tangent relationship and then the top edge on there. That is going to go and link those tangent to the top edge. So once we've done that, if we close our sketch, and then our settings are remembering what we've done before. So we need to go on here, make sure on one-sided extent, and make sure we go back to finite extent, and we're going to go 3.2 coming out on here. Once we've done 3.2, we need to left click and say we're going this way. So we need to define the side or the extent direction for the feature. And then we get our dimensions come up again, and then we can finish and cancel out that command. One last step, we need to copy these to the other side. So if we've hidden our base reference planes again, we can bring those back, because I find it easier to just click over here. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on the protrusion 48, click on the copy mirror feature command, which is popped up on there, or click mirror at the top of the screen, and then we're going to click on the front plane on there, and then right click to finish. And now we've copied those over to the other side on there, and we could go Control I and save, and that is that first example completed. Thank you very much.